You don't believe that Africans were brought over on slave ships?
Correct. I believe it may have happened, maybe people were brought over as slaves, but I don't think that the black people in America came from Africa on slave ships. I believe the people that were here were slowly conquered. First, they got the East Coast, and then they started spreading out west little by little, conquering. And when you conquer a tribe, what do? You enslave them. They're POWs, right?
Okay.
That's what you do. So after you conquer this tribe, you make them slaves. Now, how do you conquer the natives here? So let's say you got this tribe is warring against this tribe. Well, this tribe goes talk to the white man. White man says, yo, if you help me wipe out these people, then boom, I'll help you with whatever. So they get together and they wipe out this other tribe. Now, guess what? The white man now outnumbers this tribe. So he wipes them out. You just kill two birds with one stone. You just keep moving like that. We were the natives. We were not brought here on slave ships. That's not economically sound. This
what do you mean?
Make sense. So when Christopher Columbus got here, Christopher Columbus got to the Caribbean, according to a primary source.
Right.
They basically said the first thing he did was take slaves. He didn't bring slaves. He took slaves from the island. He captured people. So when you have colonization, you got to remember, the United States was only built 13 colonies at first, right? You think this whole land was empty? No, there were natives here.
Right.
But today we're taught that natives is some other people. No, natives are the melanated African being that has come here since the beginning of the Mali Empire. We're talking about 14th, 13th century. We had already come here from Africa.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had already come here.
To the United States or to
this landmass we call the United States. So the way the ocean current works is it works from Africa, leaves out of West Africa, comes to South America and the Caribbean. That's just how the currents go. You don't need no paddle boat or nothing. It'll just, the currents will just take you there, and then you travel up. But we had already been here. All you got to do is look up the story of Sarah Rector. Sarah Rector is a wealthy so-called Native American. I think she was Choctaw tribe or one of these tribes, but she was wealthy, and she wanted a VI pass to go somewhere, and they had her classified as a free person. Why don't we know about the wealthy so-called black people in America? Why don't we know that there were black slave owners in America? Why is that not taught? Why is it not taught?
How many black slave owners were there?
Man, the natives here had slaves. They were trading slaves with the so-called white man.
Well, they definitely did that. Natives enslaved people of other tribes.
Right. So if those people are us, the so-called black man, if those natives were us, then we have to tell that history and say how we did have territories and we did, carry out commerce, and we weren't slaves. We were slave owners.
Right, but the majority of African Americans that lived here were brought over here.
No,
that's
not economically sound.
What do you mean by it's not economically sound? Like there were slave ships, right?
All right, let's say you wanted to have you wanted to sell marijuana,
right?
Would you import marijuana? Would you grow it here if it's already here?
Well, it depends on whether or not marijuana grew here.
Well, can you grow marijuana here?
You can, but we're just talking about like what if we're talking about something that you can't grow here? So
what I'm saying is, people were already here. Does it make sense to go all the way to this other continent to bring people on a boat when we know that half of your stock is going to die? You wouldn't do that.
So how many people do you think were brought over from Africa on slave ships? Because that definitely happened.
I don't believe it.
What do you mean you don't believe it?
I don't believe that story.
But I'm still confused. There's a great history of slave ships being brought over from Africa with Africans that became slaves and worked in the South. Do you think that's lies?
History is his story.
Right.
What about my story? Is my story not valid?
But if you do 23andMe on someone from these parts of the country, you'll find out that
23andMe.
Well, that's real. So what is 23andMe?
When I take a 23andMe test, right?
Yes.
What's it going to tell me about Africa?
That's a good question. We should find out.
It's probably going to say, "Oh, you're from Kenya, or you're from Angola, you're from this, right?"
Right.
These things, these borders, were created by Europe.
In terms, yes,
right?
In terms of like what parts of Africa and how it's distributed and what's a country and what's not a country.
Yeah,
right.
These
by
names,
the Afrikaners and Dutch. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can't classify me based upon a European name.
I understand that, but they're saying geographically, geographic location, you can call it whatever name you want.
Right.
They can tell you where your genetics originated. Like,
right.
I've got some weird shit in me. I got like 1% Asian. I don't know why it's there. 1.6% African.
Okay.
There's also weird stuff that you find in your DNA that like your ancestors and ancestors' ancestors,
right. So
someone
let's
was
walk
somewhere.
down that. Let's walk down that
right.
path, right? So either way, if you take black people here in America and you do their DNA sample and it point back to Africa, what does that say? It says black people in America are Africans. Now, the argument is, were we brought here or were we already here? Did we bring ourselves here or did the white man bring us here? You see, when you say the white man brought us here, what you're doing is you're removing our ability to transport ourselves. You're saying, oh, we didn't know anything about boats. That's what you're trying to tell me. You're trying to tell me that we didn't know that there was a landmass here. Only the holy white man knew there was land to the west. But when you look at the holy white man, he said, when we got here, we met black people. Go look at the primary source. We got here, we met black people. When we got the Caribbean, we met black people. You think the Caribbean is right next to America and they weren't in America?
That's interesting.
Doesn't make any sense.
Well,
you go to South
makes sense that you do have people that have traveled, whether it's Polynesians that traveled to Hawaii or people. I mean, there's the Olmecs who were thousands and thousands of years ago in South America. They have clearly African faces.
Yes.
On this, I mean, really, the noses, the lips. I mean, they look African.
Right.
And that was a South American culture that existed, and we don't know anything about them other than the fact that they have these gigantic stone sculptures that have African faces.
Hello everyone. I believe that you've watched that video compilation of Joe Rogan and the guest on how they're talking about Africans are the Native Americans. I know, drum rolls. I know that this is a controversial topic. So, and it has caused a lot of, controversies because there's this case of history and there's this case of who. Anyway, so the narrative of American history as we know it is a story often told from a single perspective. But what if a foundational chapter was fundamentally misunderstood? What if it was? So this clip from Joe Rogan's experience dives headfirst into a controversial theory. Africans are the original Native Americans. Yeah. So this is not just a simple discussion. I know it's not I even before I made this video compilation, deep down I was like, okay, yeah, about the tragedy. So this is not a simple discussion about the tragedy of the slave trade, but a radical challenge to its very premise. The speaker urges the black people here, he urges the black people here were not primarily imported stock, but were the melanated natives already inhabiting the continent. In short, African Americans, Africans have been there since time memorial. That is what it's literally talking about. Do you agree with this statement, my wonderful viewers? So there's a radical theory of conquest. The theory posits a devastating shift of power. Rather than mass importation, colonization, according to this argument, it was a methodical conquest. So conquest and enslavement is point one of this theory. The speaker is actually suggesting that as new settlers were spreading west, they would conquer and enslave the people who were already there. They would conquer and enslave them, the people who already were there, and turning tribes into prisoners of war. So that is according to how all this came to be. Point two, the economic challenge. The speaker is actually challenging the very idea of the transatlantic slave trade. He is challenging the transatlantic slave trade as the primary source, arguing that it was not economically sound. Transatlantic trade was not economically sound to risk losing half of the valuable stock on a perilous overseas journey when you could simply enslave the population already on the land. So, that is exactly what we are talking about. I know you got something to tell me. I hope that I've really summarized the points just the way he said it. So if there's a point of correction, please do so in the comment section. I'm really trying my best here. And then we also have another one, evidence of prior arrival. Now, talking about evidence of prior arrival, but how did Africans get here in the United States originally? So according to this argument, it was through ancient self-transportation, which was one, ocean currents and the ancient civilizations. So let's talk about the ocean currents, right? So the discussion highlights the natural ocean currents that flow from West Africa, which could have carried the ancient mariners to South America and the Caribbean centuries before Columbus. You know, Columbus discovered what? Yes. So these black people were there before he could discover it. And then let's talk about the what? The ancient civilization. The speaker references historical accounts and archaeological finds pointing to the Olmec civilization in South America, whose colossal stone sculptures are claimed to display purely African faces. I'm not sure if this is true, so in the comment section, please confirm this. I'm just pointing out the information that has been there in the video compilation. So, suggesting an early presence of thousands of years ago of Black Americans. So, this perspective flips the historical script. It does, I know. Like, before even Columbus could discover America, Black people were there. Yeah, it suggests that Black people had their own established territories, commerce, and even were slave owners themselves among tribal conflicts long before the European dominance could exist. Mhm. So ultimately, the segment concludes by reframing the DNA debate. While DNA tests prove a genetic link to Africa, the central question is one of urgency. The main question that now comes about in this video compilation: did we bring ourselves here? Those are traditional Black Americans asking, did we bring ourselves here, or did the white man bring us here? This controversial claim challenges us to consider alternative narratives and look beyond the conventional historical record to understand the true origins of the people of the Americans. So, did Black Americans bring themselves to the United States, or did the white man bring them there? I am also not sure. I am just doing a commentary on this. My 2 cents I have shared already. So you in the comment section, please tell me what is your answer to this. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays. Subscribe. Road to 1,000 subs. Mwah.